Welcome to the No Mom is an Island podcast. As moms, we often long for moments of being alone, but the truth is sometimes we feel downright lonely. The intention of this podcast is to show you that you aren't alone, that we all experience similar things along this mothering journey. If you enjoy this podcast, please stay tuned after the interview to hear of 3 easy ways you can help this podcast continue. Well, multitasking masters, whatever you are doing while you listen to this podcast, we hope you enjoy hearing the story of another mom. Today we welcome Jenny. Hello, Jenny. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for letting me interview you. It's real fun to interview someone I have do I call it an old friendship? That seems kind of harsh, but Jenny and I were college roommates and college friends, and it's been a really long time since we've even seen each other apart from Facebook. And so this is a real privilege and a fun reconnection for the two of us. And so, Jenny, would you tell us about your family?
Sure. So I'm married. We've been married for 19 years, and I have 4 kids. I have twin boys. They're 10 this year, and their names are Zachary and Jeffrey. And then I have an adopted daughter, Mariah, and she's 5 years old, and we adopted her when she was 22 months, but we adopted through foster care, so she was placed with us when she was almost 4 months old. And then we have a foster daughter who we're hoping to adopt soon. Her name is JC, and she's 4 years old. We've had her since 3.5 months old. So she's been with us for a long, long time.
So both of your girls then you had from when they were babies.
Right, okay. Right. So they don't know any other family except for us.
All right. I'm sure that's helpful with the bonding process, even though there are still special needs that go along with, the foster and adoption process.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. I think a common misunderstanding is that if you can adopt when a child is a baby, that you bypass all of the issues. I think you bypass some of the issues, but you definitely don't bypass all of the issues.
That is absolutely correct. I kind of went into it thinking that as well. And just as I've learned through practical in my own life, and then also through research, the amount of development in brain development that happens in utero is astounding. And so everything that happens in utero has an effect, and even right at birth has a lifelong effects on your life. And the neat thing, though, is that the brain is very plastic and can change, but you have to take all that into consideration in parenting. So
right.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, and fascinating when you think about that, that there can be nurturing deficiencies from pre-birth, because, we usually think of that being as, was the child cared for after the child was born? Well, you had your girls at, just months old, so most of their baby nurturing you took care of. And, just to think how there are things that affect them from before then is really fascinating.
Yeah, the more I learn, the more I think maybe I should have been a neurosurgeon or a neuropsychologist. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah,
Am I too old? Am I too old to go back? I don't know.
No, you're not. All right, so what would you say is your perspective on mothering or parenting?
I think I thought a lot about it when I got your questions, and I think I see it kind of as my ministry, and that my job is to give them a picture of who God is and a safe place for them to learn and grow. I read once Henry Nguyen. I really like his writings, and he talked about how parenting is the ultimate act of hospitality, and that that's just a different way of thinking about it, and that our job is not to control them and to mold them ourselves, but to treat them as a gift and to see what we can learn from them. So it was just turned around my perspective and kind of trying to cherish every moment, no matter how stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I've never thought of it that way either. And I was just thinking about that in light of the children of mine who don't think the way that I do and the challenges that brings in our relationship. But when I think about it in light of having someone in my house that doesn't think the way I do, and the difference between how I interact with that person as opposed to the way I interact with that child is kind of challenging to me. Like I was just
Right.
thinking about that. I was like, huh.
Sorry, we offer a lot of respect to guests that we have in our home who, we might disagree with them, but we just agree to disagree kind of thing.
Right.
And yet, in our children, I think it's because we feel that so much of their behavior reflects on us,
right,
as parents, that we want to more control them so that they will, represent us in the way that we want to be represented,
right,
instead of respecting them as their own person that God created them to be.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like I could just stop now and go think about that for a while.
It's not easy to live that way, though. It's very,
I know.
very challenging.
It's very challenging, yes.
And you're constantly fighting how, not how you were raised, but, with ideas that you grew up with, thinking
Right.
and through your church and your family, and constantly challenging those with, is this really what I believe? And is this what also brain research is teaching us today, how I should respect my children? So
right.
It's a constant battle of, am I just doing this because I was raised this way, or am I doing this because I really do believe this is what's best for my kids?
Right.
So there's a going back and forth,
definitely
trying to figure out everything.
Yeah, and there isn't one really neat package of an answer either, which is difficult. There's not one neat package.
No, different.
Yes. Yeah, there's not one neat package of an answer for the one child, and there's certainly not one neat package of an answer for all of the children because they're all so different.
Right.
I'm kind of tired just thinking about it.
I know, I agree. I agree.
All right. Well, that was a fantastic perspective and something I'm going to spend a lot more time thinking about later. So what would you then say is your philosophy, your overarching philosophy when it comes to parenting?
Well, back to brain research, in that I want to create a safe place for my kids to develop, because, when our brains feel safe, then they're going to be able to put themselves in their right mind. So I'm trying to create a safe place where kids can be in the frontal lobe of their brains and make good rational decisions. Because when we get upset, our brains immediately take us back to the fight or flight or freeze, and we start lashing out at people. And you can't make good decisions, and you can't discipline very well either when children are in that spot.
Right.
And so if I can create a safe place where kids feel safe, then I can teach them ways to calm themselves down and to breathe, and then to be able to discuss things calmly. In actuality, it doesn't work that way very often because it's so chaotic. And
right.
So my goal usually is just to model for them what I would like to see. So I'm modeling a lot of how I want them to treat each other, how I want them to speak kindly, what words I want them to use, even how I want them to behave when they're angry. So, when I am almost losing it and I'm telling them I feel so angry right now, and I'm giving them words, I need to breathe so that I can calm myself down. And so I'm trying to model for them, because everyone has feelings, and feelings are very normal, but how to manage those is quite difficult. So teaching self-regulation and just trying to connect with them and parent that way. That's my goal every day.
Yeah, that's also a lot to think about and mull over in just that safe place. And I think we would all probably say that we want our homes to be that safe place. But the practical side of, the logistics of that sometimes gets so messy in the moments when, we're all frustrated, or, you're rushed or tired or hungry or, whatever, those triggers that cause us to not process and handle things the right way. But I love the idea of having it in mind that you're modeling how you want your children to deal with those same emotions, and, by talking it through. I can see the teacher in you, because how, when we teach something and we model it by talking about what we're doing and why. And it's that same concept, only with an internal processing. You're doing it out loud to show your children how you want them to in turn do it. And that's a a very practical, and it's funny because I was about to ask you for a practical example of how you carry out that philosophy, but then you did it anyway, so I didn't need to ask you. But
Okay.
well, because I was like, that's a great idea. How? Like that was really what I was,
Right. Yeah.
but
No.
then
I get it.
the modeling idea is a fantastic example of the how.
I think there was a book that really helped me. There's a strategy called conscious discipline. I guess it's a theory, and I don't know what you'd call it, but Becky Bailey is kind of the guru of it. And so there's a book that she wrote. She does a lot with schools, but there's also a book for parents and called Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline. And basically what she does is she goes through and she teaches parents and helps parents apply it to their own lives, and then shows how you can model that for your kids. And so it's a fascinating book, and it really opened up for me. It was, actually the first time that I had really found a parenting system that I felt was modeling what I think God would parent like.
Wow.
And so it was the first time I really looked at what does unconditional love actually look like. And I realized that I don't love unconditionally very well, because I want you to do what I want to do, and I'm going to show you approval when you do, and I'm going to definitely tell you when you don't.
Oh,
and
so true.
That's not necessarily how God shows us unconditional favor, and he teaches us, he doesn't always approve of what we do, but there's never that I don't like you right now kind of thing from God. So It was very eye-opening for me.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to look that book up, and then I'm also going to put the information of that book in the episode description underneath the podcast, so that the listeners, if they're also intrigued by that, will have access to looking up that book.
Cool.
Yeah, that touches a lot of things for me. I want to say that I love unconditionally, but I know that when my child does certain things that really push my buttons, I'm not really modeling unconditional love in those moments, because I get pretty irritated pretty fast, and I'm not very loving.
I know.
Yeah, and so I love the idea of even just for my own self-study to be contemplating that in a different way, because I so struggle with the understanding of unconditional love. Even the idea of unconditional love being shown to me, I still struggle with. And so, that's a heart issue of my own that definitely impacts my parenting.
Yes, I agree. I'm the same way.
Yeah, and I think, you and I both, we tend to be driven, somewhat bent on perfectionism type personalities. And so I think we struggle with that idea in many realms. And, I'd love to say that I struggle with it less now than I used to, but I don't know that that's really an accurate statement.
Yeah, and I think I'm learning more and more about my perfectionism and how that's a hindrance actually to loving, and because I'm more concerned about my performance and then instead of how I'm loving other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it gets really deep.
Really fast, I can tell. Okay. What is your favorite thing to teach your children or watch them learn? We'll get something a little bit lighter here after all of those comments.
Yeah. That was a fun one, because as a former teacher, I'm just fascinated how kids learn to read. I think that was such an because, I used to teach 4th and 5th grade. So I saw them when they were pretty much reading at a good level.
Right.
But to go from day one with my own children to watch their relationship to books and words and print and to see how that develops was just fascinating. I loved it. So, and I was so excited. I have one of my kids has developmental delays. And so even to see him learn to read was a huge success, and to see him enjoy books. And so I love watching them learn and how they go about learning.
Yeah. And, we all know that the ability to read is so crucial in the learning process, because if you can read and consume words, then you can learn just about anything. And so, we know the weight of how important it is to learn to read. And so that has always been a really thrilling moment for me too, when it's like, okay, good, you've got that. It's like, okay, you can handle almost anything else if you can get that.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, yeah, it is really fun to watch them get it. And it's amazing because every time you watch the process, you're like, it's amazing anybody ever learns to read. Like, that's how I felt every time.
I know. It's a lot to put together.
It is.
And there's a lot that we do to help it, but there's also a lot that just occurs naturally.
Right.
That is, I don't know, it's just fun to watch. I enjoy that. I enjoy all of their learning. I mean, I love looking at the wonder of things through their eyes. I think that one of my daughter Mariah is hands-on, very tactile and sensory seeking, and so everything to her is interesting. And just to see her exploring her world is so much fun for me.
Yeah, that's really neat. All right, on the other side, what's your least favorite thing to teach your children or watch them learn?
And that one was easy, is how to manage their emotions.
Yeah.
That's a hard lesson. And, it's hard for many adults. And then to help kids learn to manage their big emotions is really difficult.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I struggle sometimes in that. I struggle to not discount their emotions sometimes. Almost like in a, like, let's just hurry up and fix it type of attitude.
Right. And get back to peace and order.
Right.
Yes.
Can we please get back to peace and order? Yeah, I think if my kids came up with a mantra for me, it would be peace and order and quiet. Like, because I'm always like, can we please re-regulate to the peace, order, and quiet? So, yes.
I hear you.
All right. What has been a high moment for you in parenting? A moment where you felt like, okay, I can do this.
I think that any time that my children are upset and I can stay calm myself and talk them through their emotions and then reconnect to them, I think is a huge success for me.
Yes.
So it doesn't happen all the time. And so when it does happen, I'm like, okay, this is great. This is how it's supposed to work.
Right.
So those are the times that I can relax and think, okay, this could really work out well.
Yeah. Okay, so then does your low moment, is it the corresponding? If you think of a low moment in parenting when you think to yourself, oh my word, my kids are going to need counseling, if you can have the sense of humor in the moment to even think that. So what would be a low moment?
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of those. I think the low moments are when their emotions are so strong and out of control that you lose control of yourself and just can't take it anymore. I mean, just there's so many times that I just want to run and hide and, stop dealing with this because it's so overwhelming. And there's just times, especially your kids that push your buttons the most, that I can't be with you. And that is so hard for me to want to be away from my kids.
Yeah.
So there, we waited so long to actually be able to have kids. And then, the foster adopt process was a long process. And so, especially when the boys were little, I treasured every single moment of every single day that I got to be with them. And then when all the chaos started and the huge emotions that couldn't be, controlled or managed, I mean, it just got there were times that I didn't want to be with them, and that was heartbreaking for me.
Right. Yeah, there's, in the moment that feeling is so raw, but then right after it always has a lot of guilt that goes along with it. Like, how could I possibly, be happy that I'm not with them right now? Or, there's so much guilt that goes along with the moments after that feeling or that experience.
And I always wonder, am I really showing what God is like? I just can't do this, that. Are they getting a good picture? I can't. I just don't feel like I can present a good picture because I'm so imperfect at it, And so I keep trying to. I follow Ann Voskamp's blog, The Holy Experience. Have you heard of her?
I have.
Do you know who that is? Okay, so she writes a lot about recognizing each moment is a holy moment, and that God can redeem every single moment, no matter how chaotic it is.
Right.
So trying to allow God to bring on every moment, even if it's not the moment I want. So just reminding myself that even though these moments are really difficult, they're not that they're away from God. God is redeeming even through these moments as well.
Yeah, that picture of redemption. Yeah, I know I try to remember in those moments of guilt that, the bigger picture, the more important thing at that moment is to model what it means to be flawed but forgiven. Like that, like I
Right.
messed up, so go swallow your pride, go say you're sorry to your child and allow the forgiveness and redemption to be modeled also. Um,
Right.
and I know that's also important because my children also need to know, not need to expect that they aren't always going to be perfect and that they need to say sorry when they've done something wrong too. But then so often I'm like, yeah, I wish I could stop modeling that so frequently. Like
We're going to get a good picture of that one.
yeah, it's like, well, they'll be good at that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. What would you say is or has been a primary influence in your parenting?
Well, I'm part of this parent education class, and it's offered through our local school district. And I did it when the boys were 3.5 and needed more social interaction. So I joined this class, and it's basically a mommy and me preschool. And the teacher of the class is so amazing, and I've met so many amazing moms through the class that I think that has been a huge influence in how I parent. And to get constant feedback on how things are going. And she's the one that introduced me to conscious discipline and other ways of parenting, and just being supported in that way has just been huge for me.
That's an amazing concept. I don't know that I've ever heard of something offered like that. I mean, you hear of
Really?
like seminars and things like that, but I don't know that I've ever heard of like a mommy and me type class that was the focus. I mean, I've heard of Bible study driven ones where, it's about mothering or parenting and things like that, which probably is somewhat similar, but to have something be very
No,
focused.
this one is run. It's basically a preschool that you interact with your kids, and where they play, and you have circle time, just like a normal preschool, snack time, and then during craft and outdoor play, the moms divide into two groups, and half of the group watches the kids while the other half goes in and has a parenting discussion where the teacher actually teaches things, brings up topics to discuss. We look at different ways of parenting. We share stories and tips on what's worked for us, and then you flip flop, and the other group gets to go to the discussion while those parents work with kids. And the model is great, and a great part about it is because it's a parenting education class, you are the student, and so you're paying like $35 for being in the class, and you're basically getting preschool for your kids. It was just an amazing deal, and then the things that I've learned through it have been incredible. So
yeah, that's an amazing concept. That would be really neat to see more of those other places. That's a really neat idea.
I would love to see it, because we're involved in foster care, is if you could bring in families that are struggling with other families, and could provide some mentoring to different moms that, are trying to parent well, that don't have, good examples in their own lives.
Exactly.
And walk with everyone walk through it together.
Yeah.
I just think that model could really have a lot of success.
Right. And it fosters community and relationships and wow, that's really a neat idea.
And you're practicing.
Right.
I mean, we're expected to practice what we're learning right there in the class. So as there's a way, we're learning about conscious discipline. So as we're interacting with the kids, we're using those principles and, teaching the kids what to say when they want to share and how to express their feelings through words and all the different components of it.
Right. And it's at a pretty critical time in parenting too, those toddler years, those preschool years, which can be challenging in a new level because it's not just about like the basic needs care that it was when they were infants. Now you're dealing with, their own personalities, thoughts, opinions, and behaviors. And that can be a real challenge to people, particularly if they don't, as you say, have a solid influence behind them. If they didn't have a good experience or aren't close with their parents. And
Right.
that's such a critical spot in parenting. So that would be really a neat idea to see expanded to include families who are experiencing the foster system on the other side of it,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
are maybe about to as a preventative measure. That would be
Right.
really neat. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great idea.
Now just to figure out how to do it.
Yes, that's exactly right. Who, like the right person to talk to help make that happen.
Right.
So, what do you do for self-care? How do you make time for yourself?
Yeah, I laughed when I read that question. It's very difficult to get self care in.
Yes.
I think for me, I go out sometimes with friends, and that's very helpful. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband Bobby, he's really good about trying to give me breaks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I did, which is kind of different, is that I got really involved at church, and I was asked to be on the church board, and so you'd have like meetings and things like that. And it was funny; they would all laugh at me because I was the only one that was excited about going to meetings. I'm like, yes, let's have another meeting because I get out of the house and I get to use a different part of my brain and talk to adults. And
Right. That's so fun.
They were all laughing at me. And so, or I helped this summer, I helped with the VBS at our church. And so just the organizing of that, I mean, it just pulls from my teaching background.
Right.
It was so much fun. And I was, working with a friend that I enjoyed being with. And so there were, it's hard working in and around her kids, but it's still, I loved it because I was using a different part of me that I don't get to use all the time.
Right. So. Yeah, and I think that's a neat principle to think about. And so the reason I have this question is because I want there to be a wide array of thoughts on self-care so that somebody listening who's really struggling with that can see that it doesn't just mean one thing. Like it doesn't just mean what you consider like the typical way to take care of yourself. That there are so many different definitions of self-care. And so the idea that you just said about it's something that uses a different part of your brain is pretty huge in the idea of self-care. So, it doesn't have to look like always being able to go out or take a nap or whatever. It's just, like what part of your brain do you not usually use that you kind of miss using? And how could you fit that into your life? What does it look like to make that happen again? And so, like your board meeting uses a different part of your brain. And so in doing so, it's self-care.
Right. And it's energizing because you're using your creative parts and your problem solving. And I love that. So it's been great for me.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is a favorite life hack. So this is kind of a new question where I'm asking people to tell about or maybe even confess to something that you found that helps your family, that makes things either faster, cheaper, or easier in any way. So there's no like specific right answer to this. It can be absolutely anything that you have found that has made your life either faster, easier, or simpler, or cheaper.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that one because I don't know. I mean, when I asked Bobby what he would have said, and he said be local. And so, for example, not everyone can do this because of life circumstances, but he works 5 minutes from home just because we were able to live close to where he eventually got a job. And so that's so helpful because, if he needs to, he can just run home real quick and help me with something and run back to work. Or we go to church a mile from our home, which, we're in Southern California. So some people drive like 30 minutes to go to the church that they want to go to. And for us, it's just, we're local. We shop here. We go to church here. We work here. Our school is here. So that makes life a lot simpler when you're not having to drive far distances to do everything.
Right. And so for some people, thinking about that may be a challenge do I really need to do some of those things so far away? Or could I restructure my life a little bit, find something different that's a little closer that would simplify my life a little? And so,
yeah. So and jobs are hard. Not everybody can do that with their job.
Right.
especially here. I mean, commuting is just a huge fact of life here.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is a way to do it, then it makes life so much simpler.
It really does.
To not waste time on the freeway.
Yes, I agree. Okay, what is your favorite parenting book? I think you've mentioned one. Do you have another one, or would you call that one your favorite parenting book?
That is definitely the one that has had the most influence. The other lady that I really like, and she follows the same principles. She does everything based on brain research, but she works more with kids with trauma. It's called The Connected Child by Karen Purvis. Karen Purvis actually passed away, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, but she used to work at Texas Christian University, and she had this thing called the Child Institute, and they've put out these videos that have been so helpful. So there's the book, The Connected Child, and then she has the whole video series on how to help kids that are having a lot of trouble caused by trauma. And so those have been, I mean, just eye-opening in what's actually going on in the brain, and then how you can parent to help kids. And I should point out that our biological kids also have trauma because of when they were in utero together, there wasn't enough food, and the nourishment, they were fighting each other for food. And doctors didn't catch it in time. Or they didn't catch it at all until birth. And so one of our guys has a hard time with scarcity. He's fighting to survive all the time.
Wow.
And then both of my boys were in the NICU when they were born. And so that even hospital stays at an early age can cause trauma. So it's not just something like foster care that causes trauma. Your bio kids can have it just as well. So looking at these videos gives tips for working with all kids.
Yeah.
So that would be my other one that has impacted me the most.
That's great. Thanks for sharing those. All right. What would you give as a word of encouragement to that weary mom out there? A word of encouragement or a piece of advice?
I think when I was looking at that, I was thinking back to I was worrying about Jeffrey. Jeffrey is in a special day class at school, and I was just thinking through his teachers, and there was, which school should I send him to? And, I was just worried about his future and what is his future going to look like. And it just came to me. I think God helped me realize that I'm not the writer of his story, and I don't need to worry about how it's going to work out, because God's writing his story and he's on his own journey. And that's not my place. My place is to love and to provide the safe place and to show grace. And it's God's job to transform and to write out the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So it was just a huge weight off of me to think that I didn't have to plan it all out and make it come out the way I thought it was supposed to.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's, I think, my biggest encouragement.
Yeah, that's powerful. We have almost 4 teenagers. Our youngest is 11, but we joke that she's kind of been a teenager for a number of years now. They're close together in age, and so she's always been the one who's been the youngest, but always trying not to be the youngest. And so she's kind of teenagey already. And, the idea of some of the terrifying mistakes and choices that you can make as a teenager. And so thinking about the fact that, yes, my job is to guide and provide that safe place and all of those things. But you're right. God is the one writing their story. And it may have bumps in the road that also have, then God's redemption written all over it. And while I can guide, I can't prevent all of those bumps. And so that's encouraging, even looking at these teen years, which sometimes feel a little on the terrifying side. So
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Where you really hope they don't do something that terribly impacts the rest of their lives, because they suddenly at this stage have, some of those abilities to do that, and it looks really different. But that's just a good reminder that, that's not my job.
Right. Even then, God is directing and writing out the way that he wants it to come out for them.
Right.
a lot of those mistakes that make during teenage years become the most powerful testimonies.
Yes, they do.
So I think it's hard for parents to sit and watch.
Definitely.
We want to protect.
Yes, yeah. Which is natural and healthy.
Yes.
We just have to also remember what our role in it all is.
Right.
Well, Jenny, thank you. You've given me a lot to think about that I know I'm taking a lot away thinking about some of the things that you said and that we talked about. And I really appreciate you being willing to tell the story of your parenting and what God has worked on and taught you and is teaching you, because we both admit that we're not done.
Yeah.
We have
My
not
story's
arrived.
Still being written.
And so I just really appreciate you being willing to be honest and transparent and just encouraging to all of the listeners in their parenting journey as well. So thank you. It was really nice to talk to you. Yeah, it was wonderful to talk to you today, too. This was an encouragement to my heart today, so thank you.
Oh, thanks. You're welcome.
All right. Well, you have a nice day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the No Mom is an Island podcast. We hope that it was an encouragement to you wherever you are in your mothering journey. If you would like to share your story or would like to see something added to our interviews, please contact us at nomomisanisland@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. Also, if you have enjoyed listening to the stories of other moms, there are 3 ways you can help this podcast gain popularity. 1, you can share the episodes with family and friends on Facebook or Instagram. 2, you can leave a rating or review for the podcast on iTunes or Podbean. This helps boost the podcast's visibility and helps people who are looking for a podcast on parenting to find and listen to this one. And 3, you can consider contributing to the monthly expenses of hosting this podcast by going to the crowdfunding link in the episode description. Also in the episode description, you will find the books that Jenny mentioned today. I hope you'll check them out. I know I'm going to. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.